Okay, we don't know where Dan is. We've talked about that. So it's myself, Steve Gravina, front runner physio, with a bit of an injury update, but diving deeper into the medical side of footy and sport. Steve, thanks for joining us.
No worries, mate. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you, mate. Good to see you again. Thanks for coming in for your time. I wanted to start with this one because, look, for my football career, it was always drummed into me. Hamstrings are a 21-day injury. Return to play, 21 days. Do your hammy, it's a 3-week injury. Set and forget. You do your hammy, 3 weeks. I've seen multiple occasions this year where blokes come off, they're icing their hammy, and they're either trying to play or are playing or listed to play before 3 weeks. Connor Rozee, last night in the showdown, week before, I think does a hammy, ices it, plays last night, subbed off, clearly not right. Talk to me about hamstrings, the return to play protocols around them, and maybe specifically Rozee. Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, it's a tough one, mate. Hamstrings are still the epidemic. They have always been. They still are. I think it's 14 hamstrings per club per season. So the number one injury that you'll see at a footy club is going to be a hammy.
Right.
Once the hammies occur, the risk of recurrence of that happening again with that player goes through the roof.
Right.
Yeah, traditionally, ballpark 3 weeks is what we tend to see, and that takes into account the time for the hamstring tissue to heal up and then a bit of reconditioning that can occur to get you back to footy. But the healing takes weeks, if not months after that. It's just that we know that you can still function at a pretty good level to be able to play, but your risk profile is going to be there for the rest of the year, really, after you've done a hammy.
Right.
There's different degrees of hamstring strains, and I'm sure last week, if there was an injury, it would have been very low grade. So something would have happened. They've made the call to rule him out because he couldn't function. He would have gone through his post-injury rehab and recovery protocols early in the week. They would have got a scan. I'm tipping the scan would have been either inconclusive or very, very low grade.
Yeah.
He would have trained and passed a fitness test.
So fitness test is like high speed.
Yeah.
Like change of direction.
High speed as well as footy work. So pick up the ball on the run at speed,
Yes.
kicking on both sides at speed, accelerating, decelerating, bit of tackling, but then hitting his max speed markers that each club would have for these guys.
Yeah. He would have had to have passed that. They're not
passed.
They're not playing him a week after a hammy in inverted commas if he's not passing that.
Yep.
Like, there wouldn't have been iffy. He would have passed that well.
And that's the medical call. The medical call would have been fitness test, tick,
Yes.
scan, inconclusive or very low grade. So then it goes to match committee.
They would have asked the player?
Would have asked the player, yeah. 9 times out of 10, he's smashing down the door to play. It's a showdown,
Captain.
big game, captain. And we know how important the best players are to team success.
Yeah.
So then it goes to match committee. Match committee then go through a calculated risk profiling session where they look at the type of injury that's occurred, the player, his history, his precedent to be able to get through games under duress potentially, his importance in this game against this team, and every game's most important game of the season when you're 2 days out from a game.
Yeah.
And they've obviously weighed in and said, yep, he's ready to go.
So Ken Hinkley last night in the press conference said they made a mistake, and he specifically said he made a mistake. And some people, I think, would look at that and say, well, no, would have been medical, would have been captain. In the end, the head coach makes the call. With everything, they take into account this, medical, what the player says, the past, all of that. But he makes the call.
He makes the call if he's deemed medically safe to play.
Yes.
So there'd be some times when the doctor would say, no, this is not a safe decision to make and would medically rule him out.
And every now and then, though, like grand final,
Yeah.
the medical advice might be don't play.
Yeah.
And they may say, well, you know what? We're going to risk it.
Yeah, you
The
can
risk is
risk it,
higher.
but there's a duty of care. So if there's a significant risk, then unlikely. But for something like a hamstring, unless there's a big strain and he shows he can't function, then it will come down to that risk profile. The medical team will say, okay, these are the risks. Now it's over to you. What do you want to do?
Did you see, I don't know if you saw much of the game, but Rozee, they showed him and he almost like he hype extended his leg, the one with the hammy.
Yep.
And again, I know you'll answer this with, I don't know exactly what was going on. But like, did that look weird to you? Like,
It looked like on impact on that foot strike, it did either the knee gave way a little bit or the hamstring tugged and he felt like an apprehension that he almost went into hyperextension.
sometimes like they're related.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So the hamstring decelerates the leg when you impact on the ground. And so if there was an injury that occurs there, he might have felt that sharp pain tug and then the knee almost collapses.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
So, look, we're not I know you're not going to make a medical call on this, but if Connor Rozee plays next week after a 6-week return, he gets subbed off, I would be very surprised. Let's move on to another one that's been quite popular, especially over here in the West. Harley Reid, well publicised, has a week off after a 5 or 6 week block. I don't really want to get into that. I've heard a few things, i.e. it was his mum's birthday. Good on him, I think. From a medical point of view and a physical point of view, is there increased risk with having a week off and then returning a week later? Is there really good benefits for that up and down load for a young player like that? And again, not speaking specifically about him, but just in general, like, do you think that could be positive, negative? Where do you sit?
Yeah, it's a tough decision. And unfortunately with these decisions, you're never going to really know if you're right, because if he doesn't get injured for the next month or so, everyone forgets about that rest, and he might have just got through anyway if he played. With a young guy, I think there is benefit in deloading them along the way, so giving them a rest where they need it. And for someone like him, it's fairly unprecedented as an 18, 19-year-old kid who's playing as an inside mid to be carrying the load for a team, so to speak, to be playing 5-6 games in a row with these kind of minutes. So if they had an opportunity to rest him, then I think it's not a bad one, and you sort of lose that battle, so to speak, to win the war of being able to play more games across the year. So if he misses one every 6 through resting and he ends up playing 21, 22 games for the year, I think that's a big win.
Yeah, that's good. It's good to hear. It made me think of times I've been injured through my career, and I know I've spoken to you when you were at the club, obviously at West Coast with myself, around injuries, and I think everyone thinks, hamstring, he's been working too hard, it's physical. Is there any correlation between injuries and whether it's soft tissue or other, between stress, other things happening outside the football club? I know times I might have been moving house and my back tightened up and then do a hammy. No, that's physical. But does stress play a part? Does lack of sleep? Does other things that play a part to injury?
Yeah, 100%. It's not just the physical load of the body that goes into an injury risk profile. It's your body's readiness to accept that load. So if your body's readiness is compromised through a lack of sleep, or if you've been sick or illness, stress, that might come from personal stress, work-related stress, or just the stress from the grind of the professional footballing life. Yeah, that plays a role in your susceptibility to getting injured for sure. So it all needs to be factored in the decision-making process.
That's an important one, I think. It's not extremely obvious, especially at the elite level. You jump straight to just the physical, but there's a mental element.
Yeah, 100%.
Sure.
And like you would have had, the players are pretty routinely questioned on how they're going in that space. So after the game, every Monday or Tuesday in their screening, where we'll have a look at the body of the player and see how they are and if they're ready for training, but also where they're at from a psychological readiness point of view for a training week ahead.
Is that what that was?
That's what it was, mate.
Just for insight, every Monday morning, give us a rating out of 10. How you feeling? How'd you sleep? How's your week been? How routines it been? It was a question. It was like I'm back to school every Monday morning. Some boys weren't as good as others either.
No, we usually got that trend, mate.
Last one I wanted to ask about. I was going to ask. We were going to have it on last week, and so this was a little bit blast from the past, but I think still relevant. Braden Preuss, playing in the VFL for GWS, comes running out of the race, jumps up to do a big high knee lift, and does his hammy. Now, funny a little bit. I'm sure not for him at the time, and probably not now as he sits out in a 3-week hammy, because that's how long they are. But it made me think, as someone working on game day, whether it be at AFL level, AMOs, which I know you've done a lot of work through as well, what happens when a player injures themselves like that, perhaps at AFL level? What happens for the medical team? What do you guys do? You thinking, oh shit, what do we do here? Or what's the actual protocol?
Yeah, you got to act pretty quick.
Yeah.
So usually the player will come to you and say, I think I've just pinged my hammy here. And so initially you got to get hold of that player and go through a really quick assessment. And it's almost like a first aid. It's call for help. So go tell the doctor or tell someone to go tell the coach and say, we might have an issue here.
Right.
So get the person who's the emergency ready.
Because they're not sitting there waiting to play. They're that close to the game. They're up in the stands.
Yeah, we've seen guys eating hamburgers before
Meat pie's
games.
been ordered.
Yeah. So it's a quick assessment, and whether that's down in the rooms or on the field. as you normally would with any kind of injury assessment, go through if it's a hammy, contraction, stretch, can they function? Anything on functional testing where you get them to sprint, like we talked about with Connor, sprint, change direction, get a footy, make sure you can do what you can do. And he obviously couldn't function straight away, so you got to make a call pretty quickly. He's not fit to play. Yeah. Relay that to the coach, get the emergency all dressed and ready to go, warm them up so they're not at high risk to play and get injured. They'll generally sit on the bench, so you generally have a bit more time to get them going.
Or potentially the sub comes into the team and you play the other sub, like there's selection issues to be made by the coach.
Yeah, but it's a lot of thinking on your feet when it happens.
You would have seen a few of those over the journey.
Yeah, we saw a few.
I remember playing in a couple. Like Bowie Waters, I think almost knocked himself out doing it. We were doing like backline drill and Bowie got subbed out. Zave Ellis was up in the stands for one of them. And he come sprinting down, wobbling down, came out and played.
Yep.
It's a hard position to be in for a player.
Oh, 100%. But again, I'm sure you as a coach now, you'd be thinking and educating the young guys. If you are an emergency, be ready to play.
Good. Mate, brilliant insight as always. Anything else you need to leave us with or happy with that?
Oh, happy with that, mate.
Very good. Steve Gravina, front runner physio. Make sure if you do need any of that sort of service, I got one of my kids that I'm coaching. I won't tell you where, but he just goes and sees Stevie on the side because he's a very good physio. So if you need any of that sort of work done, make sure you get in contact with the guys at Front Runner Physio. Mate, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Will.